Okay, kia ora everybody. We're all on screen now and ready to commence the proceedings for the Otago Regional Council. And so the easiest way to commence proceedings is start with karakia. So I'll just introduce our karakia and then we'll go through and do some introductions. So the Commission karakia, whakatakata hou ki te uru, whakatakata hou ki te tonga. Ki e mākina kina ki uta, ki e mātaratara ki e tai. Ki hiaki ana te atakura, i tiu, i huka, i heihu, tihei, Māori ora. So welcome everybody. I'll just commence off with the introductions from commissioners and staff, and then we'll pass over to you, the team of the Otago Regional Council, for your introductions, and from there we'll go into the proceedings. So maybe we'll just start with Commissioner Bickham through to Commissioner Bull and then myself.
Tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā hoki koe i te tiamana e Brendan. Ko Bonita Bigam tōku ingoa, he urio no Taranaki Maunga no Ngā Ruahine me Te Atiawa. Kia ora everybody, I'm Bonita Bigam. I'm a 5th term elected member, 3 as a district councillor in South Taranaki, 1 as a community board member there, and I'm the current Māori ward councillor at Taranaki Regional Council. Also been heavily involved in past years with Local Government New Zealand, sitting on the National Council and chairing and co-chairing Te Maruata, the National Collective of Māori in Local Government. Lovely to be with you today. Thank you.
Commissioner Bull.
Thank you, and thank you everyone. My name is Gwen Bull. I've been involved in local government for many years in many different positions. I was chair of the Auckland Regional Council and was involved in that at the time of the reorganisation. I've also served on the commission in the past and delighted to be back again. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Bull. Hey, kia ora, I'm Brendan Duffy, chair of the commission. I've had 21 years in local government, 12 of those as mayor of the Horowhenua District Council. Been on national council, zones, rural and provincial, all of those usual roles that you tend to get involved in. Chaired a DHB for a term, and I've been on the commission for about 8 years now. So that's us as commissioners. We're the guys that would end up making the final decision. I'll just introduce the team that makes sure that everything goes to plan. So we'll start with Courtney, Donald, and then Ellie.
Koutou, ko Courtney Hayward-Aho. I'm a senior advisor at the Commission and just here to support the process.
Kia ora, I'm Donald Reesboss. I'm a principal advisor with the Commission. Been with the Commission a number of years and dealt with quite a number of representation reviews before.
Kia ora, I'm Ellie Manning with the Commission and I'm running the tech today.
Okay, so those are introductions and we'll pass through to you just very, very quickly to you, Chair Gretchen and CEO Richard. Just before I do, there's a couple of observations. Clearly we're online. It's a different protocol to being in a room with our deliberations. I always make this observations, don't be offended if commissioners' heads are down. It's because we're taking notes rather than not showing any interest. The process is pretty straightforward. You'll make your, obviously we've got your submission and we've got your decision-making process that you've gone through. So you'll summarise that. We may well ask some questions. Then we'll hear from appellants. We may well have questions through that process that will pass to you in your right of reply. So you don't need to answer it straight away. It might be that we take a break and you go away and get the answer, maybe. But just so you get that little bit of a sense, we'll make sure that there's plenty of time and we don't put any pressure on and rush things too fast. So that's the process. We'll call on each of the appellants after we've received your observations and had some questions. So my pleasure to pass over for your introductions and then feel free to go straight into your observations.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Gretchen Robertson. I'm the chair of ORC. Today I'm joined here with CE Richard Saunders, as you know. I've also got in the room with me GM Strategy and Customer, Amanda Verco. She's been actively involved throughout. And we also have expert advisor Stephen Hill from Elections NZ joining us online as well. So firstly, massive thank you to you all. Thanks very much for being here and enabling ORC to achieve the best outcome it possibly can for representation for this geographically and demographically diverse region. So yeah, big thanks to the commissioners, to local government commission staff, and especially to the community members that took the time to get involved. We had a lot of submissions, and also our two appellants today. It's great to have these robust processes. So we've got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation that's hopefully going to summarise visually and effectively for you, because I know that you will have read a lot of all this material already. So if I'm going into too much detail or you would like it in a different format, just sing out, but we'll see how we go presenting this way. So we've done our intro, we can move on, yep. So yeah, this is the existing arrangements from 2018-19 final proposal. Those are the stats there, and also you can see an intro there to the boundaries that we have, how Otago is carved up at the moment. With the Dunstan constituency, pretty big there up against the Southern Alps and stretching right through Queenstown, Wanaka, Central Otago. So yeah, quite a diverse area. The Moeraki constituency to the north of Dunedin on the east coast, bordered with the Waitaki River there. Then Dunedin, a reasonably small geographic area, but yeah, larger population base. And then the Molyneux constituency with Mosgiel, Strathtyre, Middlemarch and Balclutha, and yeah, you can see how those numbers were looking then. We voted to move to the single transferable vote in August 23, and yeah, engagement with Mana Whenua in partnership has enabled us to have a debate around our council, and we chose not to establish a Māori ward. Yep, thanks. So, yeah, in getting started, where did we kick off? Yeah, there was an introduction in 2023, yep, to the representation review, and we had a look at the key data that was informing us. We decided to oversee the review through the whole of the council rather than in a working group. So everyone on the council had a chance to be actively involved throughout this process, which we thought was really useful, and also with the support of Stephen Hill as well as an expert advisor. So yeah, we reflected on some key themes, which you will have read about and seen there. Large population growth in that Dunstan constituency around the Queenstown, Wanaka, Cromwell, and a few other areas of Central Otago as well. And yeah, just basically really large geographic areas to cover as part of those more, we call them rural wards, but yeah, they're a mixture, but yeah, the middle of our region is really big. We have two blobs of population, basically, one around the Queenstown area, one around the coast in Dunedin, and then a really big area in between. So yeah, just balancing those urban and rural responsibilities that we have as a regional council as well. So yeah, this is the informing data that we went into the discussions with. So this is from the Stats New Zealand 2023 info, and yeah, you can see that that Dunstan constituency is well over the plus or minus 10%. Dunedin's quite close there on the -9 as well, and same with Molyneux. So that's where we started off our discussions. We had some early engagement before we got into the formal engagement. We wrote a letter to our local territorial authorities seeking their views on the current state, and also to Rūnaka chairs from Otago Southland, given that we have shared boundaries with some of the Rūnaka around their affiliation to some of our rivers and catchments. So we work with both. So yeah, we discussed where we were at in our mana-to-mana meetings that we have with Rūnaka. Some good discussion there, and we did an Otago-wide short survey as well and got 64 responses from that in that early phase. It just helped us to frame up our thinking. And yeah, there are the key themes from the early engagement. The population in the Whakatipu Wanaka area has grown rapidly in recent years, as we've talked about already, and we have a lot of really challenging issues because of that as well, that we are all grappling with. So yeah, a lot going on. We need more regional councillors to focus on these issues, or a separate constituency. So yeah, that was what a lot of people fed back to us. There were 12 responses on that. There's so many issues and concerns in rurally based areas, I guess across the country, but certainly in Otago as well. And yet the urban population dominates. So there was a bit of that as well in some of the responses, 7 of them. And then in 3 responses, Wangatui and Mosgiel are part of Dunedin, and Dunedin should retain 6 councillors. So yeah, then we had a workshop that looked at the options, and yeah, they were derived. Options were derived from that early engagement and the discussions with communities of interest. And we put in a layered GIS tool so that the councillors could see what the impacts might be. Yeah, so these are some of the inputs there. Stats New Zealand data matched to proposed boundaries, the current boundaries of the territorial wards, which are different from our current boundaries. ORC's freshwater management units or catchment boundaries, which we've established for working with communities over freshwater planning. So communities have been engaged in that sort of geographic space. So yeah, the options that were included for discussion at the workshop included that redistribute. It's worded as redistribution here, but it's actually 1 councillor less in Dunedin and 1 more in Dunstan constituency. There was an option of status quo boundaries with an increase to 13 councillors. Yeah, so that would enable an additional councillor in Dunstan and no decrease in Dunedin as an option. The creation of a new Upper Lakes constituency, but because QLDC's boundary wouldn't make that plus or minus 10% rule, we needed to include the Cromwell Township, and it's in the CODC area. Oh, well, yeah, that was an option. The creation of the Whakatipu constituency, which is essentially Queenstown only. But again, the numbers didn't stack up. It would have resulted in over-representation. And then whether to consider shifting Mosgiel Strathtyre wards of the DCC into the Dunedin constituency, so that would line up with Dunedin's territorial authority boundary. So at a council meeting, these options were further considered. And yeah, we looked at a new constituency for part of the Upper Lakes with various boundaries. We were, as you do, you need to jig them round and see what works. So we did that. And there were challenges with this around the plus or minus 10% rule, and without splitting up those territorial authority boundaries, i.e., as I've talked about, Cromwell going to Queenstown, Wanaka, for example. Consideration was given to moving Mosgiel-Taieri Community Board area and Strath-Taieri Community Board area into the Dunedin constituency. However, the end decision was to leave these in the Molyneux constituency. We did consider whether or not the communities of interest are better aligned either way. And we talked about that in a fair bit of detail, and we'll put that on. This is in an upcoming slide as well, so we'll go into more detail then. So the Dunstan constituency, original boundaries and one additional elected member. It retains the alignment with the territorial boundaries and also the integrity, I suppose, of where people feel aligned with. I guess we call this area often Central Otago, even though it's actually 2 district councils. In Otago, it's sort of viewed as Central Otago. It's quite similar topography, and I guess there's an alignment there between where people feel they come from. And it addresses fair representation, so because of that population growth and also the size of this area, we think that going to 4 is best, and that's what was discussed then. The Molyneux constituency, no change. Mosgiel-Taieri Community Board area and Strath-Taieri Community Board area is in the Molyneux constituency rather than Dunedin, even though they're part of the TA boundary for Dunedin. Mosgiel-Taieri does have quite a lot of rural interests, particularly that Strath-Taieri area, but also Mosgiel-Taieri. They're quite strong farming areas. And Mosgiel and Balclutha are their rural support centres. We also run flood and drainage schemes for both Mosgiel and Balclutha. Mosgiel and the Strath-Taieri has the Taieri catchment running through there, so they're part of that catchment, and that scheme serves them. So that's quite a strong community of interest. We have some really serious flooding in that area frequently, so it's important people have a say. 2 councillors in the Molyneux constituency enables fair representation. We go almost further south there than in Otago, all the way down the Catlins, all the way up to the Strath. That's quite a big area, Dunedin constituency, changing the number of elected members. Dunedin's actually quite a small area, as you can see there, and changing from 6 to 5 would still enable adequate representation, and it's also still within the plus or minus 10% range, so we felt that that would be fair. Meraki constituency, no change there. They have 1 member and they need their 1 member to serve what is a reasonably large area as well. Right, so what happened in the submissions process was we actually got quite a lot of submissions, which was great. We got 45 formal submissions. Heaps more than in 2018, so real interest in what we were doing, and they came from a whole range of different ways. We received 120 further responses through the online survey as well. What happened then? yeah, we basically advertised widely and did get a good response. An error was identified with our initial online form. People weren't asked for their contact details, and that didn't meet the legislative requirements. So we needed to extend the deadline and promote and also put out media that had happened, so just own that, and then extend the submission period as a result. Aside from the scope of feedback, themes raised in the submissions were consistent with those in the formal submissions. So the submission themes: creating a 5th Upper Lakes constituency. There was strong support for a 5th constituency to be created for the Upper Lakes. We didn't direct a change to the Dunstan constituency as proposed in the we did. Yeah, we didn't. Based on the current population data, the case for a 5th constituency does not meet the legislative guidelines, and the council felt that by the time of the next representation review, actually though, the population trends are really strong, and it would meet the requirements at that time because of the growth that's happening in that area. So a 5th Upper Lakes constituency probably wouldn't be off the table for a consideration at a future date. Another important thing is that it is critical for regional councils to have adequate rural representation so that all of our land mass is actually represented, and communities of interest need, that fair representation, and to actually effectively be represented, it takes hours of driving across that terrain to get to people. Otago's population distribution, doesn't easily allow for this with its large geographic footprints, and as I said, 2 blobs of dense population on either ends of the region. Council, so we felt that the additional 1 extra council would increase representation for that Dunstan constituency as proposed in the initial proposal. And also, because of the changes in the Local Government Act, it means that attendees can attend our meetings online, and there's a quorum when that happens now. So we think that there's going to be quite a bit of interest in standing for election in that area, so there'll be no trouble finding candidates in that area with their large population and strong interests in what the ORC does. So that is all good. Submission theme on Dunedin constituency should remain at 6 councillors. Council heard that there was strong connections between Mosgiel-Taieri Community Board area with Dunedin, including schools, transport, water service links, and that moving this area into Dunedin would support the retention of 6 councillors in Dunedin. Council didn't direct that change to the boundaries, and I've already spoken a little bit about this, so I won't go into too much detail. Mosgiel-Taieri does include rural interests. There's quite a lot of that land is farming, and I've talked about the flood and drainage as well, interests between Mosgiel and Strath-Taieri, which are the Taieri catchment towards the south rather than towards the northeast, which is Dunedin. There's common issues that we need to be responding to in that area. If we did realign those so that we had those 2 community board areas going into Dunedin, it would leave only 1 councillor representing the Molyneux area, and it's a massive geographic footprint to cover then. We don't feel that communities of interest would be fairly represented. Yeah, so if we did want, basically to make that plus or minus 10% rule, and to have 2 council reps, it doesn't work for Molyneux either. Thank you. Right, so next one is around total number of councillors to 13 in order to retain the 6 councillors in Dunedin. So either one, both makes the plus or minus 10%, but we didn't direct a change to the total number of councillors. Council considered that given a relatively compact size and form of Dunedin, that actually 5 is fine for Dunedin. Interesting to note as well that we did have unanimous support across our council for the proposal that we're putting forward as well. So that, that's of interest. So November 2024, the final proposal. It was the initial proposal without amendment, adopted as the final proposal. Public notice issued and 2 appeals, as we know, and hopefully we will be able to hear from them today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present in person today.
Thanks, Chair Gretchen. Oh, that was rapid. We got off this, we cleared the screen very quickly then.
Yep.
Just bear with me while I get the right screen up there. So we'll just go to questions from commissioners just to kick things off. And my technology is challenging me just a little bit, so let me get the gallery up. That's much better. Maybe the first question is, and they are varied. Can you help us to understand what the real issues are in the Molyneux constituency that impact on effective representation? So quite a big area. If it was down to 1, what are the negatives?
Sorry, the question is what are the bigger issues in so things that community would interact with the Otago Regional Council on overall. I think management of water, basically, in terms of we've got the Clutha and we've got the Tairi rivers, so they're both big rivers, and so they've both got flood schemes on them. Both have got quite intensive farming as well, so in the lower Tairi especially, and the Molyneux as well. They've both got similar types of farming, dairy farming particularly. Similar issues that we're dealing with in terms of water management, some water quality work that we're doing with communities, and also that management of big rivers that flood. And having liaison groups with community so that they can have feedback on that. That's probably it, I'd say.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Commissioner Bigham.
Kia ora. Thank you, Gretchen. That was really comprehensive rundown of what you guys have been through. I was interested in your comments around the Upper Lakes situation and acknowledging the growth there, and that it's perhaps something to look at in the future and keep a really good eye on. Why, looking at the numbers of population, it's a really heavily populated area, why wait? Why not prepare now if the call is there, the numbers are there? Why not look at that now rather than down the track, as you suggest, waiting a little while for the next review?
I guess we were just trying to work with the plus or minus 10% at the moment. I guess the carve off would be Queenstown, Wanaka. There's opposition towards putting Cromwell in with them. So Oh, Amanda's just telling me an important point. Amanda might want to just say as well, it's helpful to have the answer that you're looking for. So yeah, Amanda, go for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Gretchen. I guess just to explore our workings with the looking at an Upper Lakes constituency did leave the remaining Dunstan ward severe, even with one councillor in the Dunstan ward, that would be heavily overrepresented. Yeah. So the number looked like minus 27% for the one councillor that would be left in Dunstan, because the numbers would shift to that more populated area. And so that fed into concerns around distribution and access and fair representation across that region.
Cool. Would that not, putting the numbers aside, because we know we can be, we can respond to numbers as we need. Putting the numbers aside, would those communities of interest be significant enough to give it consideration, or not? Never, just forget about the plus or minus 10%.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, if you look at Dunedin and then you look at the other big area of urban development, I suppose, they're treated differently there. So, yeah, there would be a community of interest around that rapidly growing area. Yep. They're quite different, sparsely populated, I suppose, areas of rural Otago.
So maybe just in the right of reply, it would be interesting to know what the projected growth rates are for the Upper Lakes area, what the trend has been.
Thank you. We'll see if we can dig them out now. Otherwise, we can supply them. Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Fine, that's fine. Just check on Commissioner Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bigham has voiced my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I just want to get my head really, really clear about what has been driving you through this process. You've mentioned clearly the plus or minus 10% rule, and I get the sense it's a very strong objective to endeavour to meet that. Curious though to get your perspectives around the communities of interest, which are for a lot of people equally, if not more important, get beyond the technicality. So I'm just trying. Can you give me some comfort that no, that's not a fair way to ask it. Can you give me a perspective of how well you think communities have been, communities of interest, sorry, have been respected? And I noted the words you used, the integrity of perceptual, functional, and political dimension. So there's a lot of thinking going on in that space. So from our perspective, given what you've proposed, your proposition is that you meet the plus or minus 10%. But what I'm really keen to understand is who's missed out as a consequence of this. What communities of interest may be disadvantaged by where you've positioned yourselves, or not?
Yeah, there was some points around the Queenstown, Monica, Cromwell, and probably Alexandra, and the high growth, I suppose, there, and that they're particularly evolving into a different form than they were in the past. So that's probably one. Otherwise, yeah, we've got a problem through the central part, I suppose, of the region in terms of very low representation for vast areas of Otago. That's really the other one. So we tried to be realistic and not go well outside the
Okay.
How you build an effective council as well. You don't want hundreds of councillors around a table making decisions. But yeah, we've got low representation on the Molyneux area and also on the Moeraki area. And then, yeah, I guess, yeah, and then there's the inland area around Queenstown, Wanaka, Cromwell, and whether they're aligned with the less populated areas of central Otago.
Okay. Can I just... No, thank you. That's helpful. The decision to recommend in your final decision 5 councillors for the Dunedin constituency. By how much do you feel there will be a change in the effectiveness of representation as a consequence? You've got 6 there working at the moment. You're going to go to 5. What's going to miss?
I don't think anything would be missed, and that was the feeling of our councillors, which is why we had a unanimous decision from those who've. Well, I've been involved in local government as well and representing this council for 20 years. Got a fair bit of experience on how representing Dunedin feels. Being from that constituency myself. So I think it would be perfectly fine with 5. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yes. Amanda's just reminding me that we're currently operating with 5 in Dunedin. One of our councillors stood down late last year, and it's perfectly fine, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I believe that covers off the questions from commissioners at the moment. So the only point to come back and write a reply is the numbers, projected numbers. That will be most useful to understand, because that will just help with some thinking.
Thank you.
Right, so Ali, can we go now please to our appellants? And first up, we've got Dunedin City. Deputy Mayor Cherry, welcome.
Kia ora, thank you.
Now, you've been observing so far?
Yes, I have.
Fantastic. So we don't have to go through all the introductory details.
No.
So feel free to proceed with your observations. Clearly, we'll ask questions should it be appropriate, and we'll see where we land from there. So we're in your hands.
Kia ora, thank you. As you said, I'm Deputy Mayor Cherry Lucas, and I'm here today representing Dunedin City Council. And thank you to the Local Government Commission and to the Otago Regional Council for this opportunity to speak to our appeal on the final proposal following the ORC's representation review in 2024. The DCC is disappointed that the arguments that was made in its initial submission we don't think have been fully considered in the ORC's final proposal. And our submission addresses parts of the final proposal affecting Dunedin, Mosgiltari and Strathtyring. We wish to reiterate our strong view that the number of Dunedin regional councillors remain at 6. We acknowledge the population growth in Dunstan, but we're concerned that accommodating this will be at Dunedin's expense. And in part, I had here, and actually it's in part an answer to Commissioner Bingham's question before, and I quote from a recent Otago Daily Times article on Saturday, the 22nd of February, where the economist Benji Patterson was addressing the Queenstown Business Chamber of Commerce, and he said that since 2000, 50% of the entire Otago province's growth had occurred in Central Lakes. And Mayor Lewis, he says the council's underlying assumption was there will be just over 7% growth per annum over the next 5 years, flattening to 3% per annum over the following 5 years. So we would submit that this issue of population growth should be addressed now, and an additional councillor be added in, and not at the expense of Dunedin. We also reiterate our proposal that the Mosgiltari and Strathtyring area should be transferred to the Dunedin constituency from Molyneux. And as I said, increase the number of Otago regional councillors from 12 to 13. And we note that while an increase in elected members may impact on remuneration, the Remuneration Authority has mechanisms in place to manage this. The inclusion of Mosgiltari and Strathtyring in Molyneux is a historical anomaly which doesn't recognise that these parts have been part of Dunedin City since 1989. Moving these areas into the Dunedin Regional Constituency would better meet Section 19U of the Local Government Act, wherein constituency boundaries coincide with boundaries of one or more territorial authorities if practical. The ORC is also required to consider fair and effective representation for the region's communities of interest, and transferring these areas to Dunedin will better reflect how this is in effect already operating. Politically, residents of Mosgiltari and Strathtyre vote for all Dunedin City Councillors every 2 years through STB. Both Mosgiltari and Strathtyre have community boards which are supported and funded by the Dunedin City Council and have strong working relationships with the DCC. There are strong employment and education links throughout Mosgiltari and Strathtyre with Dunedin and public transport linkages. There is no public transport link to anywhere in Molyneux from Mosgiltari or Strathtyre, and people in Mosgiltari and Strathtyre look to Dunedin for their doctor, for schools, for sports, shopping for groceries. They don't go to Balclutha for that support. Functionally, Mosgiel and Middlemarch are fully serviced by Dunedin with water, infrastructure, roading and recreational facilities. In comparison, there are no shared services between Mosgiel and Balclutha. While there are some farming and other rural activities that part of Mosgiltari have in common with Balclutha, it is predominantly an urban population, which has seen the biggest residential growth in Dunedin for the recent years. Current arrangements mean that there is a lack of advocacy for Mosgiltari and Strathtyre at a regional level, for example, on matters such as flood protection. And I would suggest that even though Mosgiltari has flood protection on the Tyre River, it doesn't connect with the Clutha River and the flood protection issues there. As a personal example, I grew up on a farm in South Otago, and I went to high school in Balclutha, which is part of Molyneux. I now live on the Tyre with my farmer husband. We don't ever look to Balclutha or the Molyneux ward for any of our support or any of our activities or any connection. We clearly look to Dunedin for that. And we believe that addressing the Dunedin and Molyneux population plus or minus 10%, along with adjusting by bringing the Mosgiltari and Strathtyre boundary into the Dunedin ward, looks to the future for that as well. And by adding that in, then the physical size of Molyneux is reduced, which is of a benefit, which Chairperson Gretchen mentioned in her submission. So I think if you're taking, they must take into account the community of interest, and in the Regional Council's presentation, the wording of integrity of perceptual, functional and political dimensions, I think we would argue strongly that Mosgiltari and Strathtyre should be included in Dunedin, and the number of councillors remain as is. Thank you.
Okay, we got that, Cherry. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll just check in with some questions from commissioners. Maybe I'll go first. So help us to understand, should the proposal from the Otago Regional Council, should their final proposal be ratified in due course, what's the disadvantage to Dunedin constituency of having 5 rather than 6? Help us to understand where the pain will be.
I think that the wider Dunedin issues, and if I take, say, public transport as an example, won't be fully represented around the table. And I personally sit on the Mosgiltari Community Board, and so I just see that those issues won't be then advocated for by a Dunedin councillor. And I mean, as living here and represented by the Mosgiltari Community Board and by a Molyneux councillor, I've never been approached about the issues that face this area by a Molyneux councillor. So I feel that those issues aren't necessarily heard around the table.
Okay, just moving on then, just very quickly then, because you mentioned the community boards.
Yes.
And this might have to go back in a right of reply as well to Region. So did you hear from either the Mosgiel or Strathtyre community boards about their views?
I know around the table at our community board meeting for the Mosgiel Tory, I can't speak on behalf of Strathtory, we definitely did, we had a strong debate and a strong discussion. I don't think in the end they put a submission in. I think they supported the council, the wider councillor submission.
Hold on, they supported? I
think in the end they didn't actually put a submission, or they supported the wider Dunedin City Council submission. Okay. So just for purity of process. So and speaking directly to you, Chair, you don't think either of those community boards made a formal observation. So, and I think that's how I understand it from you. That's my understanding. Yeah. So back to the regional council and right of reply, it'd be interesting to understand whether there was any formal engagement, just so we can tie things off in terms of formality. Commissioner Bickham.
Kia ora. Thanks so much. Interesting numbers, especially those numbers you quoted out of the article, having received that information. What do those numbers translate to in terms of people? Any idea? Of people, I'm just quickly scanning the article. I think you might have Queenstown Lakes District Council submitting after myself, and I'm sure that they will have those numbers. I don't have those numbers to hand, so no, I'm sorry. No problem. Thank you. That's cool. Thank you. Okay, I'm pretty comfortable. Just checking, Commissioner Ball.
Thank you. You may have sort of answered this in a way with the chair's question, but why do you think a reduction in the members from 6 to 5 detracts from effective representation?
I think that I heard Chairperson Gretchen talk about, she feels that the views of Dunedin are adequately represented around the table at the moment because they effectively have that reduction. I don't know that as an observation the people of Dunedin will necessarily agree. I think there's lots of issues in Dunedin, and as a bigger population base, that they want to be definitely heard and represented, fully around the table.
So in the forthcoming elections, yes, will you be going to 6 or staying with 5?
Oh, well, it depends on the outcome of this representation review, does it not?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. But what would your preference? What would your preference be?
I would prefer 6, and I'm delighted they've gone to STV as well, because I think it's very confusing. I mean, personally, living in Mosgiel Tory Community Board, that I don't get to vote for my Dunedin regional councillors. I vote for Molyneux councillors who I have nothing to do with. Don't know anything about it, and I just feel that actually these are the people here I know and who I should be voting for. Yeah.
Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you for those observations, Cherry. That's been useful.
Thank you. Right.
Let's move on then, Ali, to bring in the Queenstown Lakes District representatives. Is it Meglin? Welcome, Meglin.
You all right?
Are you on your own, or have you got support?
No, I'm on my own. I'm all good.
Excellent. Okay, I think we had your CEO on the list, but he's not on. Is that right?
Look, I thought I'd take over from the CE. I've got him at work.
Right.
Okay.
We're in your hands. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Look, the ORC constituencies have not changed since last century in 1998. They increased from 2 to the current 4. The Dunstan constituency has changed rapidly since that time. It is one of the most rapidly growing areas in the country and experienced 27.2% growth between 2018 and 2023. The constituency is geographically large, with a diverse communities of interest, from rapidly developing urban settings through to isolated rural communities. Queenstown Lakes, which has grown at 5.92% per annum over the last 10 years, and this rapid growth is expected to continue for the next 20 years. Our needs are vastly different to the isolated rural communities in the Dunstan constituency. The outcome we seek is QLDC, QLDC supports ORC's decision to assign 4 members to the Dunstan constituency in line with the prescribed population ratios, but we request that a new constituency, including Queenstown Lakes District, which is Queenstown, Arrowtown and Wanaka, as well as the Cromwell ward, as aligned communities of interest. QLDC further requests that this new constituency elects a number of members to fairly and effectively and proportionally represent the resident populations in those areas. Applying the plus 10% population ratio indicates that this would be 3 members. As a Tier 2 council, QLDC is obligated to plan and provide for growth and to work with other councils to provide sufficient development capacity for well-functioning urban areas. There is rapid and significant development occurring in Queenstown, Wanaka and Cromwell areas, and increasing pressures from high visitor numbers. Half of Otago's GDP growth has come from this area over the past 25 years. A combined response is being taken jointly to address our shared issues as Otago Central Lakes. Some of these are regional deals. The Otago Central Lakes has submitted a joint proposal related to visitor economy, the transport system, securing energy needs, developing publicly funded health services, critical infrastructure and affordable housing. Public transport. ORC is responsible to long-standing calls for better public transport in the Queenstown Lakes and to put in place regional links between Queenstown Lakes and Central Lakes, and publicly funded health services. A shared proposal has been prepared for the Minister of Health to address the critical gaps in health services across Otago Central Lakes. A combination of a Queenstown Lakes District and the Cromwell ward would also make sense in relation to freshwater management units. The Upper Lakes Rohe includes Queenstown and Wanaka, and the Dunstan Rohe includes Arrowtown and Cromwell. Why Cromwell is a different community of interest to the isolated wards in Dunstan? The Cromwell ward is considered a distinct community of interest in the Central Otago district. The Commission's recent determination for CODC's 2024 representation review accepted this view. It is submitted that due to its rapid growth and the challenges that is brought to Cromwell is better aligned as a community of interest with Queenstown Lakes district. Both Queenstown Lakes and the Cromwell ward have grown at 5.3% over the last 10 years, compared to only 2.3% for the rest of Central Otago. If I go back to 1996 to now, both Queenstown Lakes and the Cromwell ward have grown at 4.62 per annum and 4.12 per annum, while the rest of Central Otago has grown at just over 1.03%. Queenstown Lakes and Cromwell residents are significantly younger than the remainder of Central Otago. The median age in Queenstown Lakes is 36 and 42 in Cromwell, compared to approximately 50 in the rest of Central Otago. Medium household income, Queenstown Lakes, 125,000, Cromwell, 103,000. Vincent, Maniatodia and Treviot Valley are between 62,000 and 82,000. Why this provides more effective representation of communities of interest. The creation of a new constituency provides more effective representation for Queenstown Lakes District and Cromwell ward, as it provides the recommended population to member ratio and combines clear communities of interest. The reduced Dunstan constituency would not meet the threshold for the population ratio of plus or minus 10% for 1 member. However, QLD's position is that it meets the prescribed conditions in Section 19V, subsection 3 of the Local Electoral Act 2001, which allows exceptions to ensure effective representation. The wards of Maniatodo, Teviot Valley and Vincent meet the criteria of isolated communities spread over a large geographical area. It was concluded by the Commission in its 2024 ruling on CODC's representation review that the compliance with the plus or minus 10% rule for these wards would limit effective representation. The same rationale and justification applies in this appeal. The large geographic area in which the isolated communities reside would place additional travel requirements on the member, meaning a lower population ratio would provide fairer representation, while also grouping together communities with a shared rural interest. In addition, there will be one member who is focused on the needs of isolated communities in the constituency instead of the needs of a majority of the constituency in urban settings. I'll leave it with there. I heard a few questions about population. I'm happy to give you those numbers, those growth numbers, actual numbers. So I'll leave it with you, Chair.
Here's Mayor Glenn. It'll be useful to get a copy of your observations, and Courtney, I presume you'll get that from each of the presenters.
Rod will follow up from that, yeah.
Yeah, because there's too many numbers too many numbers to write down there. Can I just go to probably the obvious question? Should there be an Upper Lakes constituency? Have you got a name for it, Mayor Glenn?
No name. I think the Wanaka Community Board, when they put their submission in, just highlighted the fact that Dunstan does not mean anything to this to the Wanaka community. They have no connection to it. Look, I think the name it's not the issue here. It's about actual fairer representation for a vast, rapidly growing and urbanised area.
Just checking with fellow commissioners. Commissioner Bigham.
Kia ora, thank you. Grant, in your submission, you've got numbers there. Are those the numbers that we're looking at and talking about in the like 0.1.1?
Sorry.
In your written submission for Queenstown Lakes District high growth?
Yes. So
okay.
Those are the numbers, and that's based on our medium scenario. So because we're growing so fast, Stats New Zealand's high scenario is regarded as our medium scenario. If we actually go along, our high scenario will be higher again. So in some scenarios, where Cromwell, Wanaka and Queenstown will have a higher population than Dunedin City between 2032 and 2037. This medium one probably pushes it out closer to 2050.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you.
So Mayor Glenn, just one other thought. If there was the establishment of a Lakes constituency, what's the effect on the representation of the Dunstan constituency?
Sorry, thank you, Commissioner. I think from our point of view, it actually helped them because at the moment with the current setting, you run the risk of having 4 highly urbanised members of that constituency with no isolated rural representation. That's the risk you run under the current suggested model. The one that we propose, you'll at least have one elected member concentrated on isolated rural communities.
Okay. Just checking with Commissioner Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When considering submissions on its original proposal, Regional Council kind of said by the time the next review comes around, the numbers would be there. Would that constituency at that time include Cromwell or not?
Well, it depends on how they want to look at it. If they actually look at communities of interest and high growth communities of interest, of course it should, because our needs and our requirements are a lot different to the rest of Dunstan. From our point of view, we can't wait another 6 years because, to put it bluntly, the actual engagement in the head of the lakes area has been poor from the regional council, and that has been historically, and I'll acknowledge that it has improved over the last 2.5 years under the current chair. But the needs of the lakes area, because of our highly increased levels of growth and urbanisation, is from our point of view is overlooked in some sectors outside of the areas that of Queenstown Lakes and Cromwell.
So why do you think they suggested that it could wait till the next review?
because it can't. And from experience, we acknowledged that when we had this during Arrowtown, when we removed the one member for the Arrowtown ward, we actually brought forward the review. Instead of doing 6-year intervals, we did it in 3, because we knew the growth was so fast and so rapid that 6 years was far too long. So if you have a look back at even QLDC's history, we even went, right, we did a review, but we knew we're growing so fast, we'll do another review in 3 years instead of 6.
So are you looking at perhaps the same again, doing a review in another 3 years? And what do you think that would show up if you...
Well, that's obviously that's a decision for the commission, but look, our position is to have a Lakes constituency as soon as possible. Look, there's no way... No ways to cut this. At some point, Cromwell, Wanaka and Queenstown will have a higher number of members than any other constituency unless you amalgamate the remainder of the landmass of Otago. It's the growth in residential numbers in itself is eye-watering. You just saw yesterday they released the new dwelling consents. We were the highest, Queenstown Lakes was the highest per capita with 30 new dwellings per 1,000. The next closest was 16. The average for New Zealand was 6. We're 5 times faster than the average of New Zealand. That just shows you how fast we are growing.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Appreciate your concerns.
I think what we need to do here is picking up in the right of reply. I'd be very, very keen to get some observations from the regional council, from you, Chair Gretchen, around your responses to some of those observations that Mayor Glynn has made, and to the comment around 3 years or 6 years before something happens. That needs to be thought about a little bit. But going back to you, Mayor Glynn, just help me to understand how let me get this right. Can you quantify how people are going to be disadvantaged over the next, say, 3 years with the final proposal? Help me to give me, what is it?
Oh, it's simple. Let's look at public transport. We have growth aspirations as a district.
Yeah.
We don't see any interregional public transport, and that was one of the clear things from CODC. They wanted to at least see Cromwell connected to Queenstown with public transport. And look, I'll be quite clear that that is one area where we feel let down by the ORC because we don't have effective representation pushing for a step change in public transport.
So a constituency change to an Upper Lakes constituency would position you to be a stronger advocate, for example,
public transport, and I can say exactly the same thing for Wanaka. They've been asking for this for the last 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just check? I think, fellow commissioners, you're okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Rightio. So thanks, Mayor Glynn. Thanks for those observations. I've just got to check the time. Here we go. Look at that. We're 3 minutes over. That's pretty damn good, isn't it? So moving back now to right of reply. My sense is that you might want a quarter of an hour to just give me a nod or a shake, or do you want to take some time? Do you reckon?
Yeah, that would be good. I reckon it might be beneficial for you. Then we can give you a quality answer with data, and I think that would be helpful if you've got the time to spare for us.
No. Look, we've got the time, and we can allow as much as practical. So I don't want to rush it. But do you want to make, how much time you can see it's pretty important that we get your perspectives as a consequence of those observations. Pretty strong observations there. We need to hear the other side. I think, we are quite challenged with what are the actual numbers?
Yeah.
People? Yeah. Do you want half an hour?
20 minutes is plenty, I think.
All right. So let's agree that we'll reconvene at 3:25. Okay, 3:25. So just go on to mute, turn your cameras off, and then Ali will just keep control, but come back on for reconvening at 3:25. Don't go away, everybody. Is that on mute, Ali? Well, that's gone quickly. Is there somebody else on that Otago regional slide? No, it's okay. It's one of you guys. Okay. All right, so we'll reconvene, and we're at that point of right of reply. And I think we should do that first. We'll pick up your observations, and then I've got a horrible suspicion there's going to be 2 or 3 more questions that have come out of it. But look, let's see how we go. So we'll pass back to you, Chair Gretchen, and let's see where we land.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, thank you very much once again to the appellants too. So yeah, we'll just run through some of those questions that you've raised. We did give serious consideration to an Upper Lakes constituency. We are under the understanding that we need to be mindful of the legislation, which says that we must go off the current data rather than growth projections. So that's really where our council was coming from. So Mayor Glynn has provided a little bit more information around growth, but we haven't got those figures right now because that wasn't something that we gave serious consideration to. We were mindful of growth, obviously, but yeah, we were keeping in mind the legislation. We've got another few questions there, and feel free to ask questions at the end, no worries. There was one around whether or not submissions came from Mosgiel, Taieri or Strathtyri community boards, and they didn't. Of interest though, we did also get we got support from Central Otago District Council for the proposal that we put forward. Another point was around whether or not number of councils and remuneration was something that we were considering, but we weren't. That isn't something that was a major driver. We were looking at fair and effective representation as what was driving our decision making. Reflections on some of the comments around whether or not we have got fair and effective representation occurring at the moment. And just whether or not Mosgiel Taieri had access to local councillors on issues that are really important to them. We heard around flood and drainage is important to them, and that reflects what I said as well. We've actually been working really hard with all of our different TAs to strengthen relationships, and we've held open meetings with community out on the Taieri on flood and drainage, and recently established liaison groups where community self-elected their reps for engagement. And we did have meetings with Councillor Lucas around that as well, and our local reps were there for a few meetings. Now around buses and how we interact as well, and also wider transport, one of the representatives from Molyneux constituency is actually the chair of the Otago Southland Regional Land Transport Group. So she has an effective voice through on transport issues. We've set up joint working groups with TA partners as well on buses particularly, but public and active transport, and an inner city safety joint group as well, so that we can have regular interactions with each other. So that happens. In Queenstown, we also have a public transport joint group with the local council. The local councillor is on that group, and Mayor Lewis and myself and one other councillor. So we regularly discuss public transport in Queenstown as well. The government changed the financial model for how we're funded around public transport, and we're all quite disappointed with some of the business case work that we'd hoped to do. We haven't attracted co-funding from the government, so hard decisions to be made there. And we have got a regional deal underway. It includes all of Central Otago and Queenstown Lakes. It's not just Cromwell and Queenstown Lakes, it's actually all of Central Otago. And public transport linkages through to more than just Cromwell, through to Alexandra and others as well, as part of that. So yeah, we're working together there. What else have I got there? I guess the real issue that we were considering was balance, urban and rural communities. You know, if we did go with both of the cases the appellants have brought to us today, we would be left with 3 representatives across most of Otago. There's never a perfect answer. There's communities of interest across all of Otago. What's perfect for one may be imperfect for others when you start looking at the details. We worked together as our council of diverse people and came up with a unanimous decision on what we felt balanced all the needs of representing our communities in what is a really large and diverse region. But I did just want to thank both the DCC and the QLDC who raised really good points today. They're ones that we considered long and hard as well. They're not right or wrong, and just a big thank you to them. Thank you.
Well, you've picked up the extra questions that I'd lined myself up to ask you, so you've done a very, very good job in summarizing your right of reply. I was going to quiz the transport detail there, and I think that, and you've qualified that by saying that the Molyneux representative is the chair of the transport committee. So that just thank you for that. I was going to ask where actually do councillors live compared to who they represent, but I don't think I need to go there. I'm clear enough about where that's sitting. The population numbers, and to your point, and accurate as well, you had to use the stats that are current, and so the anticipated growth or perceived growth or projected growth, whichever word people want to use, you've acknowledged that by reflecting that at the next review, which you're suggesting 6, but if you chose could be 3, is something that needs to be considered. So I think you've articulated that, so I've got that as well. I'm just going to check with fellow commissioners if there's anything that's missed or you feel you'd like to get any additional point of clarity on.
I'm fine, thank you.
Right, thank you.
No, I'm good too, thank you. I was going to query the transport as well.
Yeah. Right. I think that's enough. I think we're done. I've got a sense that we'll be deliberating for an amount of time as we work through this process. You have, I think, to be fair to you, Chair Gretchen, you have highlighted the importance of representation, and you've also highlighted the challenges of a large region and trying to find a balance that respects everybody. And to the appellants, you've clearly highlighted perspectives that are important in the areas in which you're responsible. So look, I think everybody's been respectful. I've given their views. Just checking on Commissioner Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick question for clarification. How much time did you spend on looking at a Queenstown Lakes area?
We worked through that in the, some of the slides I presented there, but we had a couple of workshops because we did probably more than that, because we did our intro one on a high level first, and we got into it, and then people were pretty interested in that, so we did basically a third one, I'd say, where Yeah, we looked at all of the population data and various boundary options at that point. So yeah, and then would there be technical, sorry, if you want to know how much time was spent in terms of a technical, there was a lot of time spent looking at that one. Yeah.
So you would say you gave it due consideration?
Definitely, yep.
Thank
It
you.
also came to the council in a paper to the council as well, following the workshops, and was discussed there too.
Yep, that's true. Thank you.
Okay, we're done, and I just do want to acknowledge you, Stephen. Thank you. You've been online right the way through, and obviously supporting the process. So the process from here is the commission will now go away and deliberate. We've got a limited time in which to adjudicate and respond, and we know that the last day for all of this exercise is 10 April, so the clock is ticking. But in due course, that that decision will come out. So can I just say thank you for hosting us this afternoon. Thank you to the technicians in the background that make sure this goes really smoothly. And I think everybody can agree they've all been fairly respected and listened to. So with that, I'll just close out with the Commission's karakia, and then we can go and enjoy the rest of our day. Our karakia to close out. Unahia, unahia, unahia e te uru tapanui, kia wātea, te mama te tanako. Te tinana te wairua e te aratakatu, koera e ronga, whakaria aki ki runga, kia wātea, oira kia wātea, hopai mārere. Thanks, everybody.
Kia ora, thank you, everybody.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Right. So commissioners will bail out and come back in on the next one.